When I pick a non-meta list, figuring out what is your win condition.
And at lower points, kind of those things can be exposed more easily, potentially.
This guy is underrated. People are talking shit about him. I've definitely kind of continued to solidify this viewpoint, which is
Sam, you're literally Frodo right now.
He is the hero.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 70 of the Gollum's Gamers podcast, where today I'm joined by a very special guest all the way from sunny California. It's Jake Delahy. So, Jake, thank you very much for joining us today. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing? How's things on the other side of the pond?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm just settling back into Southern California and staying at my kind of in-laws house, and it's been really nice. Yeah, it's been just a really nice time seeing old friends and stuff like that.
So Jake has literally just got back home. He's been on a big trip around Europe where he played in a number of high-level tournaments using some lists to very good effect that you might not usually expect to see. So today we're going to be breaking down those lists, finding out how he managed to do so well with them, as well as some comparisons sort of generally between North American and European MESBG. But before we get underway, as always, you can find us on Instagram and Spotify by following the links in the description down below. And also please consider subscribing to us here on YouTube if you enjoy everything that we do here on the channel. Now, before we go any further, I thought I should address the elephant in the room here, that the moving boxes are no longer, I've been beaten into submission by the community to, get my life together and move them. So there we go. They're no longer, they're up in the loft now. I'll have to get something else to fill up that space there. But Jake, I thought we'd start by talking a little bit about the trip itself. Where exactly did you go, and what made you want to make this big trip over?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a trip that my fiance and I have been planning for a long time now, a few years. And I guess long story short, when I graduated college like 10 years ago, I was like, do I want to go backpack for like a year, or do I want to start my career? And I decided to start my career, but I kind of always had this idea of wanting to do a longer term travel in my head. And then met my fiance, and one of the things that she expressed is that she's lived in Southern California her whole life, and she really wanted to get out and see the world and have this experience of traveling to a lot of different places. And so we started talking about it, and a few years ago kind of started making plans. And then last year in December, we were able to make it happen. And so last December we left and started in the UK in Scotland, and then have just hit a ton of different places over the past year. And in terms of why exactly, it was really wanting to kind of have that experience of seeing different places, get the experience of living in other countries and see what that's like. And then also, in addition to that, on this trip, I made sure I wanted to play in Articon, and there was a few tournaments that I wanted to play in, and SBG is a big part of my life. And so I specifically brought along a select number of models so that I could play in different events.
Yes. Did you do any sort of forward thinking in terms of asking X person, oh, I'll need to borrow this and that, or did you bring everything with you that you needed?
Well, so the whole new edition thing actually kind of threw a wrench in my plans, because I'd been playing a lot of elves, Rivendell elves and Last Alliance. And one of the things I really liked about it is there were so many different heroes and kind of different combinations that you could make with the list that it felt like you had a ton of different ways that you could build it. And so my original plan was I was going to bring some elves and some Numenorians, and then I just have a ton of different builds and options that I could play with as I traveled, so I wouldn't get bored or whatever. And then the new edition got
Then the new
announced.
edition happened. Oh no.
Yeah. And I was leaving. So the date I left, I think, was like December 10th or something.
Yeah,
And the official
right
release
into
date was like
Christmas.
December 14th.
Yeah.
So I was pouring through, like, as all those leaks were coming out, I was like
Yes, of
pouring
course.
through them, trying to figure out what do I want to bring? What is like
The
going to
blurry
keep me
images
excited?
on the emergency podcast.
Exactly. And so I did settle on the still Rivendell and Numenorians because my thought process was okay, I can play Rivendell, I can play Linden, I can play Last Alliance. That's at least three different armies that I can kind of play around with and see how that goes. So specifically brought like the select number of models to basically be able to build those lists to 800.
Yeah, sure. Cover some basis there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
so I guess sort of looking high level before we kind of delve into some individual. Was there anything sort of in particular that maybe stood out about international events? Obviously, you travel up to Canada, I believe, for sort of events,
Hmm.
North American sort of region, but coming over to Europe, anything kind of standing out gameplay wise, kind of, or generally how sort of tournaments run and all that sort of from. Because how many tournaments was it that you actually attended? 7 or 8, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was about, I
Because
mean,
I've
it
got.
depends on how many you count as Articon, because it's like technically three different
Oh yeah, of
ones.
course.
But
Oh yeah, true. Oh
I think all total, I attended about like, yeah, 7 or 8. I also
seven
did
or
like
eight.
a small little blitz event in New Zealand, which is just kind of for fun. But yeah,
Sure.
7 or 8
Yeah.
like major-ish tournaments. I think one thing that I've noticed is in the new edition, some American events are really starting to take on the veto system and do, yeah, essentially a veto system with the new scenario pools. And I didn't see any of that in the UK in any of the events that I went to, um, or in Denmark when I went to that event either. So I think that's definitely one difference that I see is it seems like in America they're really kind of embracing veto as an option and still
Sure.
not really seeing that in the UK.
Any sort of trends or anything like that you maybe saw in terms of like the level of play or the play styles?
Yeah, so I think level of play, generally speaking, where I've landed on that is playing in a few GBHL 100s now. I think like what I see as the ceiling is not that different from like the ceiling that I see in America. Um, yeah, like I think the top players that I've been playing have been playing at about like the same level as I'd expect the top players from America. I think the big difference that I see is that the roster goes much deeper, so to speak. And so in some of those 100 GBHL 100 events that I've played in, like uh, basically all 6 of my games have been very close, very difficult. I'm playing very talented players and or experienced players, I should say. Whereas in the US, sometimes the first few games that you play, you kind of expect that it might be somebody who's a little bit more casual. They're coming to the event because it's a big celebration of the hobby and the game, and less so because it's like this is the competitive tournament that I'm trying to go to. And
Yeah.
so you get that in the later rounds, but sometimes in the start, it's there's a much bigger difference.
So I guess we should probably start talking about some tournaments. So the first one that we're going to be talking about is the Articon qualifier, which you attended in Denmark, I believe. So kind of you wanted to go to
Yes.
Articon, or you were going to Articon, but you wanted to try and get into the Masters, and this was how you did it. So tell us, how did that go?
Yeah, no, it was basically essentially like what you said, which was wanting to go to Articon, or I knew I was going to go to Articon, and I'd heard about the Masters in the past, and I really wanted to score a ticket if I could,
Yeah.
and so it also just so happened I was kind of keeping my ear out for what events were happening in the places that I was at, and I was already
Yeah.
planning, or I was already in Copenhagen
Mhm.
for in January, and I got on their gaming Facebook page and saw that their Articon qualifier was happening basically one of the weekends that I was there. I was like, well, great,
Yeah, makes sense.
great kind of serendipity. So I decided to go to it, and yeah, so it ended up being not a huge event, but I think some of the really good players from Denmark were there,
Yep.
and I was at 800 points. And I had been, so as the new edition came out, I'd kind of been playing around with different lists, essentially within the constraints that I had of
Yep.
the models that I'd taken.
Yep.
And so I decided I was going to go with Rivendell because I'd played it a few times, and I was really liking kind of the way that the magic casting with Wrath of Brunnen was
Hmm.
working with the army, and I was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Um, and so yeah, it was a 6 game event, and I ended up winning 5 games and drawing one of them,
Hmm.
which was enough to take the tournament. And um, yeah, I think the big thing that I like found out or kind of realized about Rivendell from playing in this tournament, and I'd kind of been getting these hints from before, which is that it's an army that's just incredibly versatile.
Mm.
And so there was a game that I won. My list at 800 points takes 2 banners, and so there was a game that I won because it was a banner scenario, and I had 2 banners and they had one, and it
Mm.
was against Arnor. And if I had to walk into them, I'm going to lose. If they have
Yeah.
to walk into me, I'm going to win. And it was the versatility of like, okay, I have the 2 banners, I have some shooting, I have the magic, I have great combat, and it's just an army that has really feels like it's never out of the game. Always have tools to play with it. And yeah, that's essentially what I found. I played a wide variety of different armies. I played against a Men of the West with LSR and Guahir.
Hmm.
And so sometimes Wrath of Brunnen, great at knocking down big swaths of troops. In this case, I used it to essentially bully Guahir and Aragorn and
Yep.
just keep knocking them down and preventing them from being able to do things. And so it can also be like a great hero mitigation tactic as well.
Yeah, because in
And
that specific matchup, I mean, sort of you're feeling quite comfortable with your troops versus the Men of the West troops, but obviously
exactly, yeah,
Aragorn and Guahir are two big things to sort of try and deal with. So you probably don't have the heroes to go toe to toe with them. So you've got the tools in the magic. And I mean, just touching on the list specifically for a moment. So at 800 points for the Spotify listener, it's 38 models, 2 banners as Jake mentioned, but it's Elrond on horse, Arwen on Asphaleth with Lindir as well. He's got a couple knights in there, 12 bows, and yeah, just a load of d6 outside of that. So hitting that 38 models while also getting kind of Elrond and Arwen for the Wrath of Brunnen sort of double punch, and with Lindir as well. I mean, how did you
hmm
find sort of when I saw you using it as City of Kings? I must say it's something I wanted to use last edition as well, but just yeah, how are you finding Lindir, sort of the synergy there in the new edition?
I love Lindier. I think he gives you a lot of flexibility, like just from the base with the resistance to magic. I think that's really helpful, especially if you run
Yeah.
into like Witch Kings or Saruman's, in a white hand meta.
Yeah.
So that's great. But then obviously the free will per turn is the big thing that he gives
Yeah.
you, and it really changes the list in how I play it and how I approach it. It changes the list from uh, Elrond being like a combat hero that casts magic to I actually think about Elrond in that sense as a magic caster that can fight in combat.
Yeah.
And so it kind of plays a little bit like a double wraith list would in the old edition, in
Mm.
that you've got these 2 casters that are pretty versatile in that they can either shut down troops, give you better killing opportunities, or shut down heroes, prevent them from doing things. And yeah, so I tend to keep Elrond behind the lines for the first half of the game at least,
Mm.
and just have him casting Wrath of Brunnen. That I like to keep him behind the lines specifically because I don't want to be calling heroic moves, and
Yeah.
so that prevents him from getting tagged and not being able to cast magic. And so my focus is just let me get into a good position and grind them down and use the Wrath of Bruinen as a way to kind of bully my opponent,
Yeah,
either
with
their
the
heroes or
troops.
their troops.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I guess sort of we said there about kind of just keeping Elrond back. Like obviously you would think he's someone that you'd want to kind of chuck in. He's your fight seven sort of quote unquote beat stick in this list, or as close to something like that as you have. But
hmm
yeah, kind of you don't need him to fill that role. And having an Elrond say late game with all three of his might, maybe, unless you wanted to might an important
exactly.
cast or something like that's a really sort of for a mounted model to go off with all his might and be able to kind of make plays. That's obviously really strong as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's one of the things that I found as I've talked about playing the list with other people that have had not as much success with it. I think
Mm.
there is for some players, there's actually it's really difficult to get into the mindset of I'm not going to put Elrond in.
Yeah,
Because yeah, he's, three attacks, Lord of the West, now with two-handing, he's
two-handed, even
absolutely
better.
great at and wounding. Um, and so it's like it's actually hard for people to not be like, I'm just going to throw him in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At times. So that was the Articon qualifier. So you went 5-1. You said with Rivendell.
5 wins, 1 draw. Yeah.
5 and a draw. Okay, nice. So you took the dub there. So you've got your Articon Masters ticket in hand, ready. So
Yep.
when was this tournament? The qualifier, was it early
That
this year?
that was pretty early. It was January. So the other
Oh right.
aspect to it was people were still kind of getting used to the new edition. And
Yeah.
actually, at that tournament, they didn't want to just use the original 6 scenarios. So they had written up additional,
Oh,
basically
interesting.
scaled the other 12 scenarios to a twenty
The
point
old
system.
ones. Sure. Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
How did those play? Were they sort of as expected, or was there any curveballs in there?
Yeah, no, I think it was about the same. With the new scenarios having come out now, some of the old ones have fundamentally changed. Like seize the prize to seize the prizes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and there was no big shifts like that. It
Fine.
was mainly just like the scenario is essentially the same, but scaled up to 20 points. So it
Yeah.
was about the same.
We
But
don't
it
want
was
to play the
nice because
same
it was
six.
more variety. Yeah,
Yeah, sure. Okay, nice. So you take that event there. Was that the first event kind of on this trip that
it
you'd
was.
played?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first one. So now you've got the UK in your sights. You're coming over. You've heard about the GBHL hundreds, and you have a
hmm
ticket to City of Kings, the Gollum's Gamers event. Although it's not actually ran by the Gollum's Gamers anymore, but it was run by Ali for a very very long time. That's
hmm
why it's called City of Kings. So you've got your ticket. You're going to your first GBHL 100. How did it go? How were you thinking it was going to go? All that sort of thing.
Well, it's kind of exactly like you said. Like I went in and I was like, okay, I've heard people talking about how the UK is so much better than the US.
He's been listening to the
And
podcast.
I've been listening to the podcast. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that I had like a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I was like, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to prove
Yes.
these guys wrong. I'm going to
We
show
actually
them what's
had,
up.
I had Richard from Into the West. Shout out to the Into the West podcast, messaging me saying we've sent over one of our own to put the flag down for North America at GBH 100, and that you did,
So I was nervous going in.
Yeah.
You know, had actually just flown in. My fiance and I, at that leg in the trip, had just been in Korea. So I actually had flown in from Korea like 2 days
Wow.
before the tournament.
Okay.
So I was jet lagged. I always
Yeah.
get nervous before tournaments. I can't sleep.
Yeah.
So I was pretty exhausted and nervous for the event. And I think this is like a great intro to a GBHL event because I walked up and again, North America, a lot of times you expect round one is like not going to be particularly difficult. I walked up and my first round was against Miles Sage, who
Oh, really?
fantastic
Yes.
player. I know had just won the GBHL
The
Masters event.
Masters. Yes.
And so I was
Yes.
like, oh gosh,
Game
all
one.
right, cool. This is like into the fire.
It's the Shark
And
Tank. Yeah.
but I was able to win that one. And I think that again, this goes to kind of the versatility of the list because it's at City of Kings was also at 800 points, and at 800
Yeah. So
points,
same list. Yeah.
I have 3 knights. And so he was playing Halls of Thranduil, and we were in Recon. and I was able to essentially play the entire board and sneak two of my knights off. Um,
Nice.
and so like yeah, sometimes I think I ended up kind of losing the fight in the center because
Yeah.
you go into a Halls of Thranduil with fight six and a
Yes.
+1 wound bubble, and that
Yes.
usually doesn't
It doesn't
go
go
that
well.
great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like when I play, it's like figuring out what is your win condition. And for me, my win condition wasn't that I win the fight in the center. It was that the fight in the center distracts him long enough
To
that
get the
I'm able
nice
to
off.
sneak models off on the side.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have historically not loved Rivendell Knights because they're expensive and sometimes they charge in and flub a
Mhm.
dice roll and you lose
They
their
do.
horse. And now it's like,
Fuck.
what did I pay 21 points for this
Yeah.
model
Yeah.
for? But I've learned how to play them more, and I'm more patient. I am willing to like take some shots with the bow, wait
Yeah.
until I have that opening, and then like in this case, like run them down the edge of the board and get them off.
Where you need them to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I think so I'm just looking at your game log here. I mean, so a little bit later on in the tournament, you were
Mm-hmm.
really playing some heavy hitters in the GBHL. Our very own Ali King in the final round, which we'll come on to. But you played
Yeah.
Dave Farmer in game 4 in Destroyer Supplies with his was he using the Watcher Balrog
It
combo?
was Watcher Barrog, yeah.
Yeah, how was that? Because he is very tricksy with his monsters indeed.
That was an interesting one because so City of Kings, you can bring a piece of terrain.
Oh yes, of
Uh,
course, yeah,
and Dave brought Deep Water
of course,
to
for
go
the
with his
launcher.
Watcher.
Yeah,
And I think I definitely lucked out a bit in that game. I capitalized on his Barog, kind of got a little bit far forward,
mm.
and I decided to just go for it. And I sent Elrond in, and I sent a bunch of troops in, and I didn't strike because rolling the 5 or 6 is
Yeah.
not that likely. But I got lucky. He didn't roll the 6. Um,
Okay.
I did, and Elrond is quite the beat stick into a Barog, so
Yeah,
you're
with
winning on
yeah
4s by 2s.
fours. Yeah.
Um, and I basically had a few rounds of being able to. I think the first round I didn't knock the Balrog down, but I won the fight, caused some wounds. The
Yeah.
second round I had him knocked down. He won and stood up, but like didn't
Okay.
kill me. And then the third
Sure.
round I
Yeah,
think
that's good.
I got in and I finally killed the Balrog.
Nice.
And there was absolutely some luck there in that, in that first round, we talked
You
about
just
it
kept
after the
rolling
game, but in the
sixes,
first round, he
whatever.
could have just like hurled Elrond into Arwen, and suddenly my heroes are
I
off their
see.
horses.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
game
yeah,
goes a lot differently.
yeah.
Um, but overall, managed to pull it out. I mean, once the Balrog goes down, it's a lot. Like there's only
Yes.
the one threat of the Watcher, and it's not as big of a threat. And
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
then, kind of after that game, yeah, you head into the final round a little bit later on in the tournament where you're playing Ali King with Erebor Reclaimed.
hmm
Spoiler alert: Ali did go on to win the event,
did.
but you did manage to even with the loss in that final round because you were 5-0 at this point. So we're all here, sort of. Who is this American who's come to his first GBHL 100 and he's 5-0 going into the last round playing Ali? And I sort of head over to the table and I give Ali a bit of a mini sort of pep talk. I'm like, look, you cannot let him come in here. So, but Ali did handle business, but for us. But how did that game how that game go?
It that one was surprising. So Ellie had I think like 12 crossbows,
Mm,
which was very
God,
intimidating
yeah,
because my list is like pretty good at shooting, but it's like a B tier shooting list. It loses out to Hall of Thranduils. It loses out to 12 crossbows. It loses
mm,
out to a few different things.
yeah,
And and so that meant that like I was coming towards him. I had to make the approach. Um, and I did something that I don't normally do, which is I was close enough. And we talked about this afterwards. Ali actually made a bit of a mistake in that he, I think, won priority and didn't back up far enough. And I just decided to YOLO it, and I sent Elrond into combat, which, as I
right.
mentioned earlier, I just
Isn't
don't normally do
usual.
that. I normally keep him
Yeah,
behind the lines. But I felt like I
you had a
needed
chance to.
to make something happen. Like I
Yeah,
needed to make a play happen. So I sent him straight in. And I got super lucky. I think I got something like 3 kills off of the Wrath of
Wow.
Brunnen on like
Oh,
D7.
nice.
So
On
sixes by
yours, yeah.
fours, and I just
Nice.
absolutely got a few lucky kills there.
I bet he didn't like that.
And I think that then put me into an advantageous position because now his crossbows were a little bit away from the battle line.
Mm,
I had made this engage. It was in a favorable place for me to make the
on the
engage.
board. Yeah.
Um, and I was actually like, I would say winning 90% of that game. And hats off to Ali. I think one of the things that he did really well, and I think that this is like a hallmark of a really great player, is he was extremely level-headed,
Mm,
even though he was in a like losing position for the majority of the game. He didn't panic, and uh, I essentially didn't realize that the only thing that I really needed to do in order to secure the win was just like run away with Lindir and Arwen
yeah.
because it was Fog
Yeah.
of War. So like as long as he doesn't get to my heroes that really matter,
Yeah.
it's fine. And I got a little unlucky. I had something like 6 dice and lost a combat that was a heroic combat that would have sent Lindir and Arwen away.
Right.
Um, but like shouldn't have done that in the first place. Should have just sent
Yeah.
them away in the first place. So, anyways, um, and yeah, Ellie pulls it out. So he was able to in the last turn get into Lindir, kill him, and that was what swung it to his way.
And took the game.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I don't think I've ever seen Ali actually get sort of like pissed off. Like, I've seen him flustered like once or twice, but only mildly, like you say, sort of.
yeah.
Yeah,
He
kind
didn't
of.
even really get flustered. He was just
No,
like locked
when
in.
he's losing, yeah, and he's got loads of models dying, he's just sort of like, oh, okay, so there you go. So I'd be raging and I'd be getting upset. But Ali managed to pull it out. He got the dub, but at your very first GBHL 100, I thought you came third actually, but you take home the second
I
place
did get second. Yeah.
positions, the podium spot. So that must have felt sort of pretty good to come to the UK, first tournament. You're jet lagged, you're feeling a little bit anxious coming into it, and then you come away with second place, going 5-1. I mean, it's what
Yeah,
you're looking for.
it felt really good. And again, I play to win. I'm a competitive person, and I
Yeah,
enjoy the competitive aspect of the game. But I also really enjoyed that, again, all of my games were against really talented and skilled players. And
yeah,
like, yeah, I wanted to come to the UK and like I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder and wanted to test myself. But there was also the aspect of like, yeah, this is I get to play against some of the best players in the world,
yeah,
and that's really exciting to me as well. And so
yeah.
having that opportunity to play against all of those um, players was really great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're doing my job for me, Jake, because that is a fantastic segue here to start talking about the next tournament, which is the Nations Cup. So, for anyone who isn't familiar, the Nations Cup is arguably the biggest kind of international tournament in the world, but specifically kind of catered towards competitive MESBG, which is kind of mostly what we're all about here on the Gollum's Gamers. So, there are teams sent from nations to one location. Teams of, I believe, sort of, is that 6 players?
6 players per
Six
team,
players, okay, per team, and kind of it's an international sort of tournament. So England had like 2 teams. So England 1, England 2, for example. 2 teams of 6, and kind of it's countries sort of competing against each other. So I'm not actually sure. Were you representing the US? Did the US send
I
a
was,
team there?
yeah, I was on Team
Yeah.
USA, yeah.
Yeah, and it was
Um,
in April, I think. Was it April or May?
no, it
Or
was
was it
in
even later
June
than that?
this year.
It was in June.
It'll
Okay.
be in April this upcoming year, but yeah.
April next year, sure. So, and I think City of Kings was in like end of April, so you had a little bit of a gap there
Yes,
before you
yes,
flew
yes.
to Poland. The Nations Cup was in this year.
Yes.
So, kind of you've had your first taste of high level international SBG, but now you're heading to the Nations Cup, which is kind of that times a lot. So, how was the Nations Cup experience? How did you find it all?
So I guess I'll start by saying my Nations Cup experience was not as good as I would have liked, specifically because I messed up. And long story short, I'd been doing all this traveling in Europe, and my fiance has been I was working while we traveled, so my fiance was taking care of a lot of the like planning and trip logistics.
Yeah.
And in Europe, you can only stay in the EU for a 90-day period in every 180 days.
Hmm.
And she was tracking that, but I wasn't really tracking it for myself. And so what we realized a week before I had to fly to the Nations Cup was I only had 2 available days left instead of 4. So I was planning to fly in Friday, play Saturday, play Sunday, leave Monday. And I only had 2 days that I could play. So
Oh
uh,
no.
I feel, yeah, this was a particularly low moment because I really felt like I was letting down my team.
Yeah.
Because essentially what I ended up doing was I changed my flights. I flew in Saturday morning, missed game one. We were able to get a sub to play for me,
Hmm.
and then played game two and three, played games four and five, missed game six,
Game
flew out
6
Sunday
to
night.
leave. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I remembered someone mentioned that a couple months ago or something, and that rings a
Yeah,
bell, but I'd completely forgotten. So, wow, actually hearing the details there. So, yeah, you had to kind of only be there for the Saturday and Sunday because you only had those 2 days.
yeah.
And then, yeah, obviously you had to miss the start and end game either side. So, you got a sub, though, for the team, but obviously,
We
you
did get a
didn't
sub.
get the full, because you're there to represent the US, and obviously they want you to play all 6 games, but just weren't quite able to.
Yeah, and I think the challenge with having a sub was I was playing Rivendell again. It was down to
Mhm.
750, so I
Yeah,
basically just dropped 4 models, was at 34 models.
yeah,
And the challenge was like, I've been kind of creating my theory of how to play Rivendell over the like first 4 months of this new edition,
yeah,
and was feeling really confident in it. And so that's why I decided to take Rivendell
yeah.
to Nations Cup. And then we had to bring in a sub who had never played Rivendell before. And again, like my theory of how Rivendell plays is like very different from just how you would normally play an army, right?
Mm.
And so I think that was a challenge, and that like uh very grateful that we had a sub that played, but also like it's really hard to just jump in and play an army that you're not used to.
No, of
And
course.
especially at a competition like the Nations Cup.
Yeah,
Um, but my 4 games that I played, I think I was again just really happy with how Rivendell played in those games because the first game it was Maelstrom of Battle, and I was getting shot off the board, and I kind of went all in on um, killing Gwahir. It was against Battle of the Five Armies,
yeah,
Legolas, Balin, Gwahir,
yeah,
and Lake Town Captain, I think. And I went all in, was able to kill Gwahir, but I was like way out of position from, I think it was hold ground, and um, was like down in a lot in the model count. Uh,
yeah.
but again, like Rivendell is just one of those armies that doesn't, it's just never really out of the game because of the magic and the rats and the priority bonuses from Elrond. And so I was
Hmm.
able to fight my way back into the center and ultimately and take it. Um, and yeah, so that was just like a great reminder of like what the list can do.
Yeah, and like you would
Because
think, sort of at 700, like you'd think you've got Elrond, Arwen's sort of getting pretty pricey these days on horse as well, and like 34 models at 700, like it can sort of be struggle season sometimes in some matchups, and especially like you say, if you're getting off the board, kind of
yeah,
things start to dwindle quite quickly, and it can be hard to recover from those sorts of things.
yeah. But yeah, I think once I was able to get Gwahir off the table, it was like, okay,
Yeah,
now I can just only focus. I don't have to worry about a bird in my
yeah,
back line. I can just
yes.
focus on like getting to the center.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what Rivendell's pretty good at, right? Especially when you've got the
Yeah.
knockdown and things like that. So, yeah, obviously a shame that you weren't able to play in. Do you know, kind of, would it have made a big difference, kind of, if you were able to play in those other 2 games? I don't know how USA did, sort of overall for the Nations Cup.
So we were doing really well. In the first matchup, my substitute lost, but the team won overall.
Okay.
And then we won round two and we won round three.
Oh yeah, because you guys,
So,
you were playing on stream. Ash was playing Alisher when I think those two were the top teams, and I think that was like round 3 or something.
I think it was
Was it round
round
or round
4 or
4?
5,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay.
So, because yeah, we won all 3 games day 1. We drew
Okay.
against Poland in day 2 for the
Round
first
4.
game.
Yeah.
And then round 5, we played against Team England and we lost against them.
Right. Yeah.
And then I think, so for my own performance, I was really happy with the remaining 3 games. I kind of
Yeah.
was the sacrifice into Dale for
Okay.
all 3 of those games.
Right.
And in 2 of them, like I was not expecting to win any of them, and I won 2 of them. And I think again, just the versatility. In one of them, it was Recon, and Elrond had gotten knocked off his horse from a wind lance, and literally
Mm.
just spent the entire game walking up the left side of the board, and like in the last turn, was able to Wrath of Bruinen to knock guys down and eliminate control zones, and then just walk off.
Oh, nice, and get off. Nice.
Yeah,
At Dom
and
3
then
as well. Yeah.
Dom 3, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then in one of the other ones, again, like it always felt like I was in these losing positions, and then
Mm.
the army was just able to like fight its way out of it,
Yeah.
thanks to either Wrath or the
Foresight. Yeah.
foresight or the special rule that you get once you're broken.
Yes. Yes. Oh yeah,
The
that's
like special
actually
Wrath.
yes. How do you find that? Because obviously, when I saw that, I thought that looks like a really unique sort of piece of kit that it's sort of like arranged. But have you found that? Have you found that pretty clutch in some spots?
I have had it win games for me, and I've
Yeah.
also had it do nothing. So
Okay. Yeah.
it's a bit of a mixed bag.
But when it
It
works,
can
you're
be
like, oh yeah, this is great. Yeah.
the game it won for me was LSR was on a horse, and I'd spent all game trying to Wrath of Brunim and get him
Mm.
off, but he was casting resolves and his
Yeah.
resist rolls were really good, and so I just couldn't get him off the horse. And then
Mm.
I broke, and you can't resist this special
No.
Wrath of Brunin.
Yeah.
And so I rolled a 4 or
Lobbed
higher
it
and
at him.
knocked him down, and that was it.
Yeah.
He was on his ground.
Nice.
He was on the ground, knocked flying, couldn't call a heroic move,
Yeah.
and that won me the
Nice.
game. So
You almost wish that you'd have just like not done that and just all of the casting earlier on and just like waited until you were broken and then try.
yeah, exactly.
Obviously,
Yeah.
the aim is to not get broken by LSR in the first place. So ideally.
But anyways, I guess wrapping up Nations Cup in the last
Yeah.
game, me not being there, technically my game didn't matter. I think, but I think there's also like a psychological aspect, and
Yeah.
I
No, of
think
course.
Team USA at that point was pretty exhausted,
Mm.
and it doesn't help to have one of your players just not really be
No.
there.
You're not
So I
locked
think
in
like
quite the same.
had I been
Yeah.
there, maybe it could have been like as a team we overall play better and nab a higher spot, but we ended
Yeah.
up losing
Yeah.
the last one.
Whereabouts did you guys finish? Team USA.
7th, I think, something like 7th or 8th. I
Okay.
think if we had won the last game, we would have had a shot for 3rd.
Okay.
But
Yeah, because you were sort of at the end of round 5 to be playing Team England, both of you being sort of at the top. You were right there,
Mhm.
sort of up until those later stages of the tournament. So
yeah.
there was one team who brought it home though, and that was the English boys. I will not go. There were some people that weren't too happy with all the boasting that we did on our podcast afterwards. So you can go and check that out if you want to hear how we did at the Nations Cup overall. So that's the Nations Cup. So you did that and everything, and then a couple months later, in August, is when Articon was. We're fast forwarding to Articon. So obviously you went to the Masters. You had the last chance qualifier that you played in as well, even though you had already qualified. So
I just wanted more practice. Yeah.
You just wanted to play, exactly. So that's fair enough. But we were going to sort of focus specifically with the sort of subject of this video on one of the lists that Jake took to Articon, which was Army of the Great Eye, which is a list that has caught my eye, pun intended, lately. I must say. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. We spoke a little bit at Articon because I was there as well. I did the live streams. For anyone who hasn't seen, you can go and check out the Articon live streams. There was lots of support to try and get Jake onto the live stream, but unfortunately he did not make it up into the top table gaming area over the week. He wasn't good enough, but still, it was he was trying a sort of a more unique sort of list. So kind of, what's your take on the list and kind of how it went, all that sort of thing?
Yeah, so for the Spotify listener, it was Witch King on horse, Shagrat, Mouth of Sauron,
yeah,
and then
Black
Moran in front line, mostly Moran in front line.
Black Num Moran.
There's like
three
Black
sorry,
Nums.
no, sorry. I saw Black Num and I then assumed it was Black Num Frontline, but no, there's only three.
No. Mostly Moran in front line, regular Orc back line, a few Black Nums, mainly for like courage, objective taking, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And a drummer, so a Orc drummer. So kind of an interesting, like some of the parts of the list don't have synergies with the drummer, like the Black Nums, the Shagrat doesn't, and the Mouth of Sauron doesn't. No. But I think kind of the big theory with the list, I was really struggling to find something to play at 700. From the models that I had, Rivendell and Numenor, I wasn't loving anything that I could put together. And I asked around. I was able to, Dave Farmer was actually able to help me out, and he loaned me the army that I played with. So
you did do a little bit of borrowing there.
I did.
Has to be done. Good.
Has to be done. Well, I was, I love playing Rivendell, but also like I was kind of itching for something a little bit different. And
switch up.
And at 700, really one of the things that I kind of honed in on, I was like, man, drums are good. Drums are really good. Yeah. And so I was trying to figure out what's a list that feels good that I can fit in a drum. And so Great Eye I kind of kept coming around to Great Eye. And the other thing too is I'm surprised that I haven't seen more Witch Kings around. Like I see in a few, but like Witch King is still a fantastic model.
Yeah.
And especially I was expecting Army of the White Hand. It's really nice to have something that tells Greenwood to just go away.
Yeah.
And so, I landed on Great Eye. I think I talked to some people and they were saying that Minas Morgul is maybe just a better version of what I brought, which is fair. I'm actually about to take Minas Morgul to an upcoming tournament in Vancouver in October. So we'll see how that goes. But, things that are different. I think Shagrat as like a big secondary hitter is really nice. Yeah. I think the Mouth of Sauron as a secondary caster is really nice. I think that's pretty much it. It's like having the heroes are kind of what can make or break or make the difference in a list. And so having that different hero selection was really nice for me. And I think I lost my first game. And really, when I reflected on that, I lost that game because I was trying to play my Orc army like I play elves.
Right.
So it was divide and conquer. And I should have waited to consolidate my army before I went and fought against Halls of Thranduil.
Yeah.
And instead, I was in the mindset of I need to get to the position and then hold that position, which is kind of how I think about with elves.
Yes.
And so like I did that, and then my guys just started dying way too fast.
Yeah.
And I couldn't
before
pull
the
it
rest
back.
could.
So
yeah.
So that was like a great learning game. It was a good reminder of like, okay, you need to like change your mindset and how you play this. And then from there, I did great. I also about halfway through the tournament started figuring out how oaths work and was like able to finally start picking up my oaths.
Yes, for TP. Yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up, I was a little gutted because it was game 5. And you told me at this point, hey, people are asking for you on stream. They want you.
Yes, because we had breakfast together and I sort of let him know, hey, there's people asking for it. You got to step up.
And it was game five, and I I was on like I think I was probably in like 20th place or something, and it's top
Yep.
16 that can go on
Yep.
stream. And I was like, if I win this one, I think
Yep.
I'm up there.
He's up.
And
Yep.
I drew in that one, so I was a
Oh
little
no.
gutted. I couldn't pull it out, but
Close.
I won the last game and then ended up 12th in the tournament, which I was quite
12th
happy with overall.
at
Yeah,
Articon. Yeah, so what it was like
yeah,
120-ish players. Obviously Articon,
120.
very well
Yeah,
known. Yeah, so sort of and your first time at Articon as well. So yeah,
yeah,
just
yeah,
outside the top 10, it's no bad finish there at all. Obviously it's
yeah,
a GBHL 100 as well, so sort of
yeah,
it's not
yeah, yeah.
seen in that way usually, but it is a GBHL 100 still. So, one thing I wanted to ask about this list specifically before we moved on is your thoughts kind of on the special rule, the eye banner, the moving. How do you find that? Did that end up making much difference? Was it just being moved away a lot? Yeah, because it's when you roll a one, I think, isn't it, that it gets
Yeah.
moved away? But that's like twice the distance that you can move it usually. So how did that play
Yeah.
out?
So I got really lucky. Literally, the entire tournament did not move away once. I never rolled a
Really? Oh
one for
wow.
it. Yeah. So I lucked
Great.
out there, 100%.
Yeah.
But it was great. Like I having a banner effect that can't be killed,
Mm,
can't be like moved around or messed with is
yeah.
really nice. And
Yeah.
I am. You'll see with almost all of my lists. Like I am a huge two banner guy. I
Mm.
love having huge, lots of banner coverage, and so yeah, having just more banner coverage across the line was super helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's actually quite interesting because, like I said, this list has taken an interest, or I've taken an interest to the list lately. I'm thinking of taking it to 1,000 point tournament. You'd mentioned
Mm.
about Minas Morgul, and I really want to use the Witch King on Fellbeast. So, but I don't really want to use Minas Morgul. So, Army of the Great Eye has a Witch King on Fellbeast. So yeah, I'm thinking of taking it, but I was speaking to Ash about the list to get his thoughts on it, and he said, "But compared to last edition, you don't have a 6-inch banner anymore." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you've only got the normal banner. That's fair enough." But technically, if you roll well on your eye rolls, then you
Hmm.
have
It's two
another banner
3-inch banners.
you could
Yeah,
place just next to your exactly. So same sort of thing. If anything, maybe a little bit better because you can move it where you want it to be independently of the other. I don't know. So
yeah,
there you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
So yes, that was Army of the Great Eye, and then about a month later, we come to the best GBHL 100 in the GBHL calendar this year. Our very own, the Lemon Cup, which you can go and check out the tournament live streams for if you missed out on those. But we did get Jake on stream this time very quickly. Game one, in fact, if you want to know where to go to find the game, as it was just too good of a matchup. It was against our very own Adam, who had flown in from Barcelona. So two kind of international players. Can we call Adam an international player? He lives outside the country now. So, but they were facing off round one. Adam had Men of the West, which obviously everyone knows very well, Aragorn, LSR, and a Ministerious Captain. It was 777 points, and Jake had a Last Alliance list, which we spoke about that list on the preview. I've been a very big advocate, I've tried to be, for Last Alliance over the last few months. But yes, Jake, Last Alliance, do you want to run us through your list? How did you find it?
Yeah, yeah. So the list was, let's see, Elendil, leader,
Mm-hmm.
um, about something like 7 spear and shield, 6 sword and shield
Yep,
Numenoreans. A Restor with a banner and a bunch of foot elves, and then a Riv Captain with a shield and
yep,
a banner and a bunch of foot elves. So 2 banners
mm-hmm.
again.
40 models.
Total of 40 models,
Yep, super
which
good.
was great. And Elendil.
Mm.
And we'd spoken about this a little bit. Like part of this was model restrictions. I would make a few tweaks for like my ideal version of the list. I'd probably put in a few Numenorian bows, um, give a few more spears,
Yep,
probably drop the shield from the Rave Captain to get a few
yep,
more points to make this happen.
yep,
But it was like close enough,
yep.
and it was the models that I had. And it was so I had played at a tournament previously with Arrestor and Elendil, and it went okay. I think the captain is You kind of need numbers for Last Alliance. You need numbers, and I think the march really is important as well
Hmm.
as an option. But a restore really unlocks the list, in my opinion, because I have written a bunch of Last Alliance lists with like Elendil or Elendil Elrond, Isildur Elrond, Elendil Gilgalad, like trying to make it
Yep.
work, and it just like none of them really felt great for me until I was able to put in a restore and
Yep.
kind of just hoard out on the elves a bit.
Yep.
And it's so freaking fun to play with. Elendil, I for whatever reason never played Elendil last edition, and
Really?
there's a part of me
You
that's
missed
like,
out.
oh, I really missed out on
Yeah.
this guy is so fun on foot. Imagine having him on a horse.
10-inch moving free combat strength 5 +1 to wound. Yeah, he was fucking nutty. And he was D8, he had a shield on foot if he got knocked off his horse.
Two free
Obviously,
resistant to magic dice.
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
fortify. Yeah. So obviously now he's fight 8, which in this new edition is really good. So that is
really good.
quite a
Yeah,
big buff in a sense. But yeah, he still does Elendil things on foot though, for sure.
yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what I learned is like, oh, I'm like, oh, he's still
Yeah.
really fun and still great at killing things, especially
Mhm.
with there's still I'd say more D5 floating around,
Sure.
not as much D6.
Yep.
And man, when you're the key to Elendil in this edition
Mhm.
is getting him an Elven Spear support. Because when you're wounding on threes, rerolling ones,
Yep.
like you are reliably getting off heroic
Yes. With
combats.
the army bonus. Yeah. That's
Yes.
super nice.
And so that's kind of what I found is he's super fun. Because the Rivendell I've been playing, like it's more passive.
Mhm.
You let the enemy come to you, you knock them down with Wrath of Runin, profit.
Yep.
With Last Alliance, with Elendil, it's like it's more aggressive. It's like let me go
Mhm.
forward and smash things and like bust a hole
Yeah.
with Elendil.
With the strength 4 and things like that. Obviously, you still have the bows because there is an element of that list, at least how I thought it would play in some senses, is that obviously you want to try and get some sort of benefit from the Whirl of Steel special rule. I mean, how did you
Mm-hmm.
find that? Was that coming up quite big? I've been quite vocal on the pod about saying that in lots of practice games against this list, it would just constantly screw me over. But how did you find it? At a 6 game tournament?
Similar to the like super rapid Brunin from Rivendell. Like it is kind of hit or miss. I
Mm.
think the biggest thing for it is it's a psychological deterrent,
Yep.
um, because it makes people think twice about sending their heroes into combat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say that the biggest thing was I had a game of Storm the Camp against Minas Morgul, and I got a lucky bow shot off that ended up taking 3 fate off the Witch King. So Witch King was
Wow.
out of fate.
Yeah.
And now at that point,
You
he
can't. Yeah.
was like, I can't charge an elf because if they roll a
Yeah.
6 and then hit the Witch King, like he's just
Yep.
dead.
Yeah.
And so it changes how your opponent plays in a way that is really interesting. And I think if you can take advantage of that, it can be really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously game one Jake was on stream, and there were some beautifully painted models as well. It's worth saying that Jake actually won best painted at the tournament as well, so that speaks for itself there for sure. But so you ended up in the Lemon Cup, your second or technically third GBHL 100, coming third. So I mean,
Yes.
a really really great finish there. Kind of, was there any other sort of key moments from the Lemon Cup other than it being a super great event, of course, that you
Yeah.
wanted to touch on?
I mean, from the event itself, I really enjoyed a lot of the like evening activities, evening festivities. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, I One of the things that I'm used to in the US is like, again, these events are gatherings of your friends, and you're usually staying in a hotel, and so
Yeah.
it's like an entire weekend just kind of suffused with
Mm.
the hobby and with your friends and talking about it. And so like I enjoy a really great like evening of where you can kind of continue the
The
from
tournament sort
after the
of.
games. Yeah, you just
Yes,
continue
yeah,
kind
no,
of partying
exactly.
essentially.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
And so that was great from the Lemon Cup. I think, terrain was great, tables were great, and yeah, again, it was one of those situations where, like, again, my first game was against Adam, which was a fantastic and very difficult opponent.
yeah,
And I think I looked at my like after the tournament, I looked at the results, and I was like, I ended up playing four out of the top seven or something
yeah,
players, and so like, yeah, you just ended up with a tournament playing these just really fantastic players, which
yeah.
was great.
And that was why you wanted to go. So yeah, the Lemon
Yeah,
Cup
exactly.
delivers, folks. Get your 2026 tickets, get it, the date in the diary. But obviously, this all sounds great. Rainbows and daffodils, podium spots and GBHL 100s. He's making it sound easy, but it doesn't always go to plan. Jake, you had a couple events with a couple lists where it didn't quite go to plan. How did those go?
Yeah, so I throughout my journeys, I also ended up going to two GBHL 90s. And one of them I decided to take Linden.
Hmm.
And
And that's the Gilgalad list where you
that's
can take
Gilgalad.
yeah.
So,
What's
and
the special bonus for that list? I can actually remember what that is.
Gilgalad gives resistance to magic within a
Oh
6-inch bubble,
yes, yeah,
which
yeah.
is kind of nice. Um, and it's similar to the old uh, Rivendell bonus, which is models that are within
Oh, they
three
don't
inches
move.
of a hero that don't move can reroll failed to
Reroll
hits
ones. Oh,
um,
for the shooting. Oh, I see. It's that. Yeah,
for
yeah,
shooting. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Nice.
And so, which is fine. Um,
Yeah.
I in that so that was a GBHL 90, and I kind of made the mistake of like thinking that GBHL 90s people are like less competitive than
Mm,
GBHL 100s. And so I was like, oh, I'll take Linden, which is like,
yeah.
kind of not that hardcore of a list. Like I've been wanting to try it out. Let me try this out and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And no, but people like played good stuff. And
Yeah.
people took lists that I would say are objectively better than Linden. And
Mm,
I had such high hopes for Gilglad. I was like, man, this guy is underrated. People are talking shit about him, but like he's
I'll
pretty
show
good.
them.
I'll show them.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't deliver. I've been one of the like things I've been thinking about lately is this concept of asymmetric threat potential. So it's
Hmm.
this idea of like you have two heroes, and if you go into a strike off, for example, but one hero, if they win the strike off, they kill the other hero,
Yep.
and the other hero, if they win the strike off, like maybe causes a wound.
Hmm.
That's like this asymmetric like threat potential. And in that case, it's like, oh, okay. In that case, if you're the hero that's going to kill if you win this 50-50, like just go for it. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's what I realized with Gilgalad is the fight nine is great, but he doesn't have the threat potential to back it up
Mm.
and make people scared of him. And so, like against LSR, for example, who can
Yep.
strike up to fight nine, possibly fight 10, I can't really do anything about that. And then if I win, like maybe I'm causing a wound or two on LSR, but he's got three
Yeah.
fate, three wounds. He's chilling.
Yeah.
And then if he wins, he's
He's
wounding me
he's
on
got a big
fours, and I've only
lightsaber.
got one fate. Like it's just
Yeah.
you go up against these other heroes, and like that's what Gilgalad is supposed to do is fight heroes, and then
Mm.
you realize that he's actually just not that good at it.
Yeah. And do you
Um,
think that's him sort of like, I guess, because he only has the chance maybe for that one or so wounds because he's on foot now? Like, do you think it's losing the horse kind of, not having the knockdown with 8 dice at +1? That's a lot scarier for, killing potential, right?
I think yes, I do think it's definitely losing the horse because the horse is also defense.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
if LSR on horse charges me
Yeah.
and I lose, I am absolute toast.
Yeah.
But if you have your own horse, like, well, okay, now we're both still three attacks, and like there's
Yeah.
a bit of a buffer there.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's also I thought losing strike wasn't that big of a deal, but losing strike
Mm.
is that big of a deal
Yeah.
because LSR, for example, I played Men in the West in my first round and lost to them. LSR for Frodo's up to fight 8.
Yeah.
Um, all he needs is a 3+ on the strike, and he's at fight 10.
And he's 10. Yeah.
And um, yeah, you just again, it's when you're managing risk and you're thinking about risk, um, even the risk of an enemy hero striking up to fight 10 is like enough to make me be like, oh, well, I
Question what
actually
you're
can't
doing.
put Gilgalad in. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah, plays on you, and like, especially when it like he's only D7 now. Was he D8 last edition? Yeah, he was D8 with the
He
shield.
had a shield, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, and like being able to shield and just all those, yeah, kind of things that you lose kind of makes you second guess certain decisions and things like that. Where your last edition you were able to do a little bit more. So Lyndon, was that at low points you were saying? Was that 500?
It was 600. So it was Gilgalad and a captain, yeah.
Okay, and what, like 30-ish models? Or were you just
Yeah, I think it was
okay,
30 right on the nose.
Okay. And then you were trying at 550, I believe you were trying the Last Alliance. What sort of makeup did you have there for that?
Yeah, so this was actually 500 flat.
Oh, 500. Okay. Yeah.
And it was just Elendil and Arestor.
Okay.
Which this was the thing that made me realize that I wanted to take it to Lemon Cup. So I'm thankful for that. I went 3-1 at this event, so it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But it was one of those situations where I ended up into Lurtz's scouts in
Capture Control.
camp one.
Storm the Camp?
Storm the Camp.
Storm the Camp.
And yeah, it's like, okay, most of my army is D5. You've got a whole bunch of strength 3 Uruk bows.
Yeah.
And I have no march, and I'm just walking towards
you.
Like,
walk. Yeah.
This is a bad, and you're faster than me and more mobile. Like, it was just a bad matchup. And so it's one of those situations where like it was a bad matchup, and I couldn't really play my way out of the bad matchup.
Yeah, and it's until sort of you get to those higher points with a list like Last Alliance where you have more points, to fit in some of those things that can cover up those weaknesses. So, and at lower points, kind of those things can be exposed kind of more easily potentially, especially for a list like Last Alliance. Maybe even more so when you're going up against a list like Lurtz's Scouts, which has just won a GBHL 100 recently, and kind of for free almost, you've got so many good things baked in, like Fight 4, Strength 4, Move 8, and all that sort of stuff into like a really solid troop profile. And you can take lots of them as well, so you can't always overcome those things. So, okay, well, I guess moving on then, kind of, would you say there's any sort of lessons, anything? We've talked about all these tournaments that you went to. You've flown home to the US now. What lessons, if any, are you taking home from playing so many sort of top players here in the UK and also elsewhere in Europe as well?
Yeah, lessons. I think the game plays similarly across the different countries. Lessons wise, I think like this was something that I was starting to pay attention to more and more even before I left on my trip. But I've definitely kind of continued to solidify this viewpoint, which is just the importance of kind of the mental game around playing. And especially for me, like, again, competitive person, I go into every game like I want to win. I care about it. And if things don't go my way and I get flustered, I know that that's going to not serve my goal of wanting to do well and wanting to play well in the game. And so I think actually at Lemon Cup, this really came up several times. And I may have talked about this on stream, but being able to, so in my first game against Adam, we deployed in Maelstrom, and I would say after our Maelstrom deployment, I was in a worse position than Adam was. And really looking at those kinds of situations and being able to kind of unemotionally look at it and say, okay, I'm in a losing position. What is my win condition? What is the thing that I do to make it so that I can get out of this losing position?
Yep.
and like hone in on that. Don't get nervous. Don't get flustered. Don't panic, and really just like figure out what is the thing that I need to push towards and work towards, and then focus on that. And there were several games in so like my last game at Lemon Cup, it was against Assault on Lothlorien, 60 models, Treasure Hoard. I was fortunate in that I got like the favorable side for deployment, and I essentially focused in. I was like, okay, this is a bad matchup for me, quite frankly. Like he outshoots me. Um, the strength three throwing weapons against me in Dark of Night is going to be
Yeah.
absolutely murderous if it pops off.
Mm.
And so like, what is my win condition? And for me, I was like, okay, my win condition is I get all three of my treasures. I had the opportunity to get one of his because, like I said, I picked the favorable
That's
deployment
right.
side.
Yep.
Get that, get the four of those, and then just hold out. And like
Mm.
that is and win by like 2 points or whatever.
Yep.
And I just focused on that, and that's how it ended. Is we ended on time, and I had all four. I had four treasures, and he had two, and I avoided getting broken. And so like being able to not panic when I'm in a bad matchup or a bad situation, and focus on like what are the things that I can do to pull this out.
Yeah. When things kind of, start to go south, like we were saying, sort of with a player like Ali, super experienced,
Yeah,
and it's kind of that ability to just sort of, put that to the side and, look at what you need to do to win the game, sort of helps you do that over all of your games over a tournament, right?
yeah.
So is there anything that you might say that kind of we're doing over here that maybe isn't happening in North America as much, or anything that you guys do in North America that maybe you didn't see kind of Europeans doing, anything like that? Or
Well, I think it's interesting. I think um, the when you talk about like metas,
mm,
the metas are definitely different in sometimes subtle ways. I think in the US or in the UK, because there are so many GBHL 100s
yeah,
and people are taking stuff to them every time. I was thinking about this a little bit. Like, why is it that people tend to hone in on a certain thing in the meta and then bring that a lot?
yeah,
This thing is good, and then you see it a lot. And I think part of it might be, it's just a theory, might be that because there are so many events, people are not playing practice games as
mm,
much. And there's less opportunity to like, when I pick a non-meta list or a list that like other people aren't playing, part of my thought process on it is like, okay, let me look at this list. Like, what are the things that I think are being like slept on? Or like this piece, what can I do with this in a unique or interesting way that's going to be different from how other people approach it? So like, for example, with Rivendell, like me kind of paying attention to like, okay, how am I going to use Elrond in a way that I think maybe other people aren't using him? In a situation where it goes wrong, how am I going to use Gilgalad in ways that I think other people aren't going to
yeah,
use him? Um, and I think sometimes those ideas take a little bit of time to develop. And
yeah,
so if you're playing in tournaments every other weekend, you really don't have opportunities to like develop ideas.
yeah,
You just kind of like, well, you know what? On paper, Jeff Samoria looks really good. You've got a board wide banner and a
yeah.
Balrog. Like, it's good
Sure,
enough.
yeah,
Like, let me just take that. Um, and so like, yeah, as you start to see, like you said, Lurtz's scouts winning a GPHL 100, I think it's players starting to say like, hey, you know what? This might be getting slept on is like free heroic combats from Lurtz.
yeah.
Or
It is
like
nice.
drums are freaking amazing. Like
Mm,
maybe a drum with 8-inch moving guys is really good.
yeah.
So it's those kinds of things that I think I see more players like willing to step outside of the norm in the US. And that's partially because
Mm,
there might be like 2 or 3 months between events. And so it's like,
yeah,
okay,
it's
like
more
I have
time.
time to play around with something and explore an idea.
Yeah, and it is something, to be fair, there is a bit of a trend kind of amongst sort of the more top end players, at least here in the UK, is that, yeah, I don't think too many of them kind of do tend to have practice games. Speaking for sort of like our team specifically, there was a period kind of a couple of years ago where we used to go to a game store nearby and sort of, have some practice games, sometimes on sort of maybe every month or so, which was quite a lot sort of thing really for us. I know Ash, Sam and James, they used to sometimes play lots of games at Ash's house. They would just play loads and loads of practice games, and that helped them a lot kind of as they sort of learned the game at sort of the higher end. But just sort of, I think that is a trend I've noticed, to be fair, where I think maybe just with the amount of tournaments that there's so much choice, and sort of you can just try a list out at a tournament rather than sort of in a environment where you can actually focus on specifically how does this work, what's wrong with this, how can I improve it. You're playing it for real in a tournament, and there's not always time to evaluate in the same way. So I think I agree with that, Jake. But I think finally I'm going to come on to a very important question here. That, having played in North America, the States and also Canada, and now playing in the UK and Europe, you should have a pretty decent gauge on this. And it's a very important topic, as we see online in Facebook groups, and that is, of course, about terrain. Now, the Australians listening their ears perk up immediately. But how did you find the terrain? Was it as bad as you had been fed through social media? Was it better than you were expecting? Tell us your honest take here.
No, it was. I was not. I didn't look at the terrain and think that it was really any different from what I'm used to. I'm used to a variety of different terrains on different boards, and some boards have more, some boards have less. And it was absolutely within the range of what I would expect at a normal event. Talking to the Australians, I think one of the things that they mentioned is that they do more scatter terrain, which I think is interesting, actually. Because maybe there's the same amount of large buildings or large forests or whatever, but they've got more barrels and fences and stuff sitting around. So I'd be interested to see kind of what their events look like, but no, terrain in the GBHL was pretty normal for me.
Wasn't the big sort of boogeyman that you were expecting maybe flying over? You're like, I don't know, I've got an elite list, there's not going to be many anchor points to... No, that wasn't the experience you had. Well,
no, not like that. I would say, and terrain at Articon was good this year. I know Articon has historically gotten some flack.
Has had some,
The only thing that was sometimes a bit frustrating, and I know James is, I think, going to switch this up next year. I use sourcing feedback from the community, which is great, but there's a lot of the terrain was very samey. It was all Asgiliath ruins, with some forests and some terrain. Rocks. Yeah.
I think that's something that has been said by quite a large proportion of the player base, I think. So I think that is something that they're looking to switch up for next year. The 10-year anniversary, and we may be streaming potentially as well, so we'll see. But I've left the terrain segment here to the end, because just in case you had some flaming take, I didn't want that to be at the start. So now the Australians have stopped listening, so we're safe now, if there was a bad take. But no, you couldn't slag off the terrain for the Lemon Cup, obviously, because one of the team members is here. So you even if it was terrible, you would obviously not do that on our channel, of course.
No, of course not.
No, of course not. So I think that is going to close us out. Jake, thank you very much for joining us for your insights there on your European trips. So you're leaving next year for another little trip, you were saying? I'm not sure if that was on the podcast or before we were recording, but you're going away again next year as well.
Yeah, just a short, it's going to be another, probably 2 months at the beginning of next year.
Yeah.
Mostly dance related. I don't think I'm going to be bringing an army.
No SBG.
Not
just one little in the back pocket in case.
Maybe we'll see. I'm going to be in Cambridge for 2 weeks in January. So if an event happens to be somewhat
January. Well, there is Into the West in January. Not to say, I mean, that's not in Cambridge, but Into the West is probably the biggest event in the UK at this point.
Okay.
It's on the first weekend of January. So I see a little look in his eye there, folks. He's going to be on the event page after this. Shout out Matt King. Yes, no, Into the West is a very, very good tournament indeed. So who knows? We may see him there, folks. Okay, Jake, thank you very much for joining us. And I think that is going to close us out. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching another episode here of the Gollum's Gamers podcast.